Delighted to be joined by Amanda Serrano ahead of the biggest fight in women's boxing, the rematch November the 15th, Amanda Serrano versus Katie Taylor. Amanda, how are you?
I am doing amazing.
Good. I bet you are. I mean, this is, as I said, one of the biggest fights in boxing period, not just women's boxing. This is an absolutely monumental fight. Um, let's take it back to 2022, the first inaugural encounter. It was a grueling fight, a split decision win for Katie Taylor on that night. It didn't go your way, but often in these fights where they take so much out of you, you learn something about yourself. I wonder, what did you learn about yourself that night?
Well, I learned that I belong in there with these greats. I've only had 9 amateur fights. So to go in there and put on the performance I did against Katie Taylor, her being an Olympic gold medalist, her being undisputed, her accolades as an amateur, having over hundreds of fights, you know, going in there with her and being able to do what I did to hurt her multiple times in the fight, being the smaller girl, being the featherweight. So I definitely have more confidence going into this fight. Obviously, it's going up another division, but nonetheless, I'm still have the confidence that I can hurt her. And yeah, just being sharing the ring with a fighter like Katie Taylor, a champion like Katie Taylor is always an honor. But I mean, this fight is big for both of us. We have this amazing platform, being in the biggest stadium on Netflix. I think we're both deserving of this opportunity.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, you say 9 amateur fights, but you've been in the pro game for an extremely long time, one of the pioneers of women's boxing. How much have you seen women's boxing change, particularly when you of course linked up with Jake Paul? You were probably looking at, I can't imagine what sort of money you were being paid originally, but it was probably quite low compared quite differently to the payday for this one. I think on Twitter you said that, well, Katie Taylor's been paid 6 million. You say you're being paid more. So it's changed quite significantly, Amanda.
100%. I mean, we still have lots of work to be done in the sport of boxing. But from when I started 16 years ago as a pro, I've been a pro for 16 years in March. I got into the sport obviously because of my sister. She started in 2001, 2000. I think she turned pro in 2003. The pay scales was practically nothing, and she really didn't make the money that I make now. Now that we're a team and I'm making the money, we're all making great money. But it's sad to see, those girls who struggle and do the same thing we're doing not get paid. But it's still a work in progress. We still need to work because not all the women in the sport is making the type of money that Katie and I are making. I'm making this money and Katie's making this money because we're fighting each other. But when we fight different people, we're not making this type of money. So that's why, even if we have to do a trilogy and keep on fighting each other, making this type of money, that we'll keep doing it. But we're still in work in progress. Once we continue to put on shows that we do, like come November 15th, when Katie and I put on another amazing show for the fans, I think people are going to be more aware of women's boxing. And it has been changing. We have a lot of great champions fighting champions and putting on amazing shows. So, I mean, there's only one way we can go, and that's up.
I won't ask you about the payday for this one because that's too personal. But your debut, do you remember how much you got paid back then?
Actually, I think my pro debut was a little more than usual because I was fighting I went to the girl's hometown. She was a national champion, amateur champion. She had a lot of amateur fights. We were the main event, so I think I got paid like $1,200 or $1,500.
Okay.
But that was a high pay scale according at that time. But I got paid for world title fights $3,000, $4,000 for being a multiple division world champion. So it's honestly, Jake coming into my life, into my career, he changed it 100%. My first fight with Jake Paul was my biggest payday that I ever received, and it was he decided that he wanted to do that for all the fighters on his card to make their biggest payday. And from there, it just kept getting bigger and bigger.
Mm-hmm. Talk to me about that relationship with Jake. Of course, you credit him so much with the change in pay and the change in the way that women's boxing is being perceived in this current day and age. But I think when you first met, I can't remember the exact quote, but you said you didn't rate him. There was a bit of maybe a frosty encounter when you first met.
Yeah, no, I've obviously I heard of Jake because of my nephews at the time, and they were like 9, 10 years old. So, hearing these YouTubers coming into the sport, you was a little like on the edge, like, why are they doing this? Is it, boxing is a hard sport. We have fighters, training their whole lives in this sport and not getting the pay or not getting the recognition, and these YouTubers come in. But when my first encounter with him was when he made his pro debut and I was on the undercard. And I joke around all the time because I was so excited, more excited to meet him for my nephews than I was for me, because I really didn't know who he was. I went to go give him a handshake, and then he turned into a fist pump. He said a handshake. I was like, oh no. I kind of felt disrespected. But he told me the reason why now. But the my first like real encounter with him, where I went when we was on Showtime, I went to his brother's house to do a training session with him. And from there, my view changed completely of him, because he was just an extremely hard worker. Like, he was putting in the work. He didn't have his entourage there. He was putting in the work. We was able to speak to each other a little bit. And I just realized that we have so much like between our families and my family. So it was just a great partnership. And he's not like what he is on YouTube or on his Instagram. He's just, his family and him, they're completely amazing people.
Mm-hmm. You credited as being one of the hardest hitters in women's boxing history, and you've been in there with a fair few hard hitters as well. I wonder who you think hit you the hardest during your illustrious career.
It's funny. I have 50 pro fights, and
Yeah.
I only felt one punch out of all those 50 fights and all the rounds. I only felt one punch, and I say it all the time. That was against Fatuma Zarika. She was the WBC World Champion. She became after we fought twice, and the second, no, I believe the second fight, she caught me with a hook, and I was like, whoa, I saw black for a second. I was like, oh, okay. but it was okay, because I felt that in the gym so many times by the men. So to me, it didn't faze me. So I was like, okay, I recovered, and I was fine.
Mm. Where does Katie Taylor's power rank amongst the opponents you've fought? Because you say you've only felt one punch, so I assume, of course, she wasn't among that list.
No, Katie is she's a strong fighter physically, but her punching power, she doesn't have a big punching power, but she is strong. Like, when we got into the clinch, she was like really hard to push off. Like, she wasn't gonna let me go easily. But yeah, she's just a strong fighter, and she's mentally and physically strong, but her punching power isn't like the biggest.
Mm. You mentioned sparring men there. I've seen a few videos of you in there with men. It must be quite hard with the level you're at getting female sparring partners.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely harder. But now we're changing. The sport has changed. Now there's a lot more women, a lot tough women now. I've been sparring with a girl. Her name is Elise Soto. She's one of my fighters as well. She's 6-0, was 6 knockouts, and she's only 19 years old. But she has a chin, and she keeps coming. I'm like, my God, and is that I'm getting weaker, or these girls are getting stronger? But you can see how women's boxing evolved, and how these women are coming a lot stronger. But with women tend to spar or fight a little different. Like, Katie likes to hold a little bit. She likes to like wrestle a little bit. So when I spar women, that's what they do. With the men, they're not gonna. If I hit them once, they're not gonna feel threatened and hold me and try to. They're not gonna do that. They're gonna stand their ground and try to beat me up or try to hit me harder. So this camp, I got a little bit of both. I got female and male sparring. Before, it used to be just male sparring, and now I got a little bit of both, which is good for me.
And then final question for me. I'm sure you've been asked this thousands of times, but Paul versus Tyson, how do you see this going? Of course, we'll be backing your boy Jake Paul, but how do you see him getting it done?
100%. This is a tough one, because I'm a Brooklynite, just like Mike Tyson. I never thought that I would be in this opportunity co-main event against Mike Tyson. When I started boxing, he was retired. So it's just, knowing Mike Tyson and who he is. But, the last thing to go is power. But I think Jake is definitely, he's mentally ready for this. He's strong, he's young, and I think he wants to prove to the world that he belongs here. And I think he wants the world, the boxing world, to know that he's not going anywhere. And Mike Tyson definitely wants to knock him out of the boxing game, but it's gonna be hard. I think just Jake has to definitely still be careful. You know, if Mike lands a punch, it might be an early night. But I think 100% Jake got this, and yeah, I'm with him 100%.